Thank you, Dr. Wheeler. Blessed good morning, loved ones. First of all, can we have a round of applause for these musicians, please? Come on, come on. Seriously. You guys are really good. I mean, really. I mean, they're really good. Bless God for that. Well, my testimony, it starts here. A little backstory. It's June 1st. The year is 1962. The place is Dodger Stadium. It's not a story about the Dodgers. It's a story about the Los Angeles Angels. At that time, the Angels were a new club, and they had been founded by and owned by a man by the name of Gene Autry. Anybody remember Gene Autry? Oh, thank God for that. Amen. The old singing cowboy, that's him. Well, when the Dodgers were playing away games, the Angels were using that stadium. And Gene Autry was not only a man who had made millions of dollars in radio, television, but with his radio stations that he owned, but he was a philanthropist. So every now and then, Gene would invite a Hollywood star if they were representing a cause, and he would bring them to the stadium, present them in front of everybody, give them one of those big, giant cardboard checks, you know what I'm saying? So that night, he's going to have a star there. She's going to be waiting in the dugout. He calls in his top center fielder, a young man by the name of Albie Pearson. Albie's in his mid to late 20s, a young guy. He's a former American League Rookie of the Year, 1958. And the amazing thing about Albie, he's 5 feet 5 inches tall and weighs 140 pounds soaking wet. What is this guy even doing in the majors? But he's actually an all-star. This young guy, this little guy, could hit, he could run, he could throw. So he asked Albie to escort this woman onto the field that night when there's the announcement. Albie says, "And who is this?" He said, "You'll recognize her when you see her." So that night, Albie heads down to the end of the dugout, and he sees a woman there at the end of the dugout. And it's a little cool night in Los Angeles. She's shivering a little bit in this beige outfit with a little hat. And as Albie gets closer, he knows who it is. It's Marilyn Monroe. Oh, my lands. Albie's excited. And as he gets closer and closer, she's just beautiful. He's just stunning. She's, wow, everything he ever thought she would be. She's stunning. But as he gets closer and closer and closer, as they introduce themselves, he notices something very strange, that there is no life behind her eyes. There is just nothing behind the eyes. The facade is beautiful, but there's no life. And Albie had grown up as a young man, a Christian young man. And he thought, my Lord, she's in trouble. She had just come back 7 days before from singing Happy Birthday to President Kennedy, and here she is now. But there's nothing behind her eyes. And Albie knew that minute that this woman was nothing but used and abused. There's nothing there. But when the announcement came, she heads up on the field with Albie, and she's all smiles because she's an actress, and she's waving and smiling and everything, and the check is presented, and there's the big deal about that. And as they're heading back down to the dugout, she stops him and looks at him face to face this far and says, "Albie, you've wanted to say something to me ever since we met. Something's on your heart. What is it you want to tell me?" Wow. Now, that's an opening. And Albie, because he didn't want to sound like a religious nut job, he didn't want to sound weird, some kind of a Jesus weirdo, he said, "Nothing, ma'am. Thanks for coming." And he went out to play center field, and Marilyn Monroe walked away. Well, less than 8 weeks later, Albie is in New York City. They're playing the Yankees in an afternoon game. That morning, he's down for breakfast. He picks up the New York Times and reads the front page headlines on August 5th. Marilyn Monroe found dead in her Brentwood home. Apparently, suicide. an overdose of barbiturates and sleeping pills, a rather staggering overdose. And Albie began to weep. He knew he had blown it. He had blown it. And he told the Lord that moment, Lord, I'll never deny you again. I'll be bold. Make me bold. And as soon as I'm out of baseball, Lord, if you want to make me an evangelist to the stars, I'll do that. Well, 6 years later, he was out of baseball because he was injured. He was little. And he said, Lord, make me that evangelist. And the Lord said, I'm going to make you an evangelist, but not to the stars. You're going to work with young people. You're going to work with young men and women. You're going to work with the preteens, the teens, the college-age kids. That's who you're going to work with. And a few years later, he finds himself in Eugene, Oregon. He's preaching with another evangelist at Willamette Christian Center, and he's preaching to a group of about 50 or 60 college-age high school kids. And he's just preaching his heart out with the gospel, and there's one kid in that audience, one young guy, just cannot believe what he's hearing about the love and the grace and the mercy of God, the power of God, and how salvation is taken care of, and how this gift of salvation is free. This young man has been looking for this all his life, and how God will give you a purpose in your life. And he's upset because the other kids aren't even paying attention. It's like they've heard this before, they don't even respond to it. But this is a powerful message. And when the altar call happens at the end of that night, anybody need to receive Jesus? This young man, bang, hand goes straight up. And after the meeting, Albie takes this young man to a back room off the area, prays with this young man to receive Jesus Christ as his Lord and Savior. And that young man was me. And it dawned on me some years later that what Albie Pearson wouldn't tell Marilyn Monroe, he told me. And the rest, of course, is history. God has helped me to launch more than 1,000 ships, but only because Albie Pearson went from a chump to a champion, from a putz to a proclaimer. And that night, I got saved. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we all stand? We have one more song to sing, King of My Heart. Let the King of my heart be the mountain where I run, the fountain I drink from. Oh, he is my song. Let the King of my heart be the shadow where I hide, the ransom for my life. Oh, he is my song. You are good, you're good. Oh, you are good, you're good. The King of my heart be the wind inside my sails, the anchor in the waves. Oh, he is my song. Let the King of my heart be the fire inside my veins, the echo of my days. Oh, he is my song. Once more. Let the King of my heart be the wind inside my sails, the anchor in the waves. Oh, he is my song. Let the King of my heart be the fire inside my veins, the echo of my days. Oh, he is my song. You are good, you're good. Oh,
gonna